Golden State Media Concepts Fantasy Football Podcast is your one-stop shop for fantasy football news and advice. Can't decide on who to draft on the first round? Going gaga on how to line up your team. We've got you covered. Traditional leagues, dynasty league, PPR league, IDP league, even daily fantasy football league. Join us as we break down all the questions of fantasy football. It's the Golden State Media Concepts Fantasy Football Podcast.
What is going on, ladies and gentlemen? We are back for another episode of the GSMC Fantasy Football Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Sports Network. My name is Austin. I am your host per usual. Always going to be the fantasy football host here. Very happy to have that position, and just happy to be able to talk about sports as I make a living, in this life that I cannot change. But guys, we're going to be live at 7 p.m. Mountain Time every single day. Every single weekday. Always say every single day, but it is Monday through Friday, 7 p.m. Mountain Time, so make sure y'all are tuning in if you're enjoying the content. I love having people here in the comments just asking me questions, and I'm always down to answer any questions that y'all have in the comments for sure. So make sure you're getting them in there. Make sure you guys are liking and subscribing too. Interact with the channel definitely helps. We're doing a whole series, a whole arrangement of things with this podcast, with the other podcasts too. Trying to do audio only and moving over to that video side as well. So I'm just happy to be here. I'm happy that y'all are here. Check out the Patreon, link in description. That's the only place you can get my exclusive fantasy football takes. Only singular place that I will be doing that is on the Patreon, link in the description to check that out. But just happy to be here, man. Another day in the life for sure. And let's just get right into this NFL content, this NFL fantasy analysis, and start with Leonard Fournette, who 21 days in the NFL season. Obviously, week started 3 weeks ago today, on Thursday Night Football, and 21 days into the season, Lenny has still not found a team to play on. I am baffled. I don't understand how running back 12 last year can't get a look from any team in the entire league. The reports were that he was out of shape before when he was interviewing with the Patriots, and I'm sure that he's had to have gotten in shape at least a little bit now. If y'all don't know, if Lenny by week 5 is not signed to an NFL team, and that's going to hit right on 14 days from now, it's week 4 right now. So, geez, 1 week from now is when I have to do that? Holy snap. That is ridiculous. But if he does not get signed to a team by week 5, then I will have to buy his jersey and burn it. And that is the deal. I will do that live on one of our YouTube shorts that I be posting. If y'all see the YouTube shorts, make sure to give that a like too. Always helps if you guys are liking the content. If you just interact, that's the best thing you can do for us, most definitely. But Lenny's still not on a team. I'm in shambles, and I really hope I don't have to buy his jersey and burn it. Other news, Travis Kelce is officially dating Taylor Swift. It's an actual thing. Reports are coming out. It's an official relationship. So, yeah, congratulations to them on that. And, dating another person, a lot of y'all can't relate to that, actually getting to date another human being in this life. But I digress. I want to talk to y'all about kind of what I'll be talking about today. First, we're going to go over the sleeper report. I got 3 guys that, I think are really good sleeper candidates and have a pretty decent matchup in week 4. Then I'm going to break down the London game. There is a London game this week, guys, with Jacksonville going up against the Atlanta Falcons in Wembley Stadium in London. For me, I'm in Mountain Time. I'm in Colorado. It's at 7:30 a.m., and I'm giving y'all my exclusive take, my exclusive write-up on that game. Then in segment 3, we're just going to have some fantasy talk where I'm just kind of open-ended. If you guys are in the comments saying stuff, asking me questions, I'll be checking on the comments, but I'll pretty much be talking about just a couple guys that I like from a fantasy perspective. Probably we'll talk about my couple of fantasy teams and the strategies that I'm going into week 4 with. And then finally, I will hit y'all with the weather report. So nobody is, in the dark about the weather in these games. It's looking promising on Sunday. for a good, nice little day of football all around the country, but I will make sure to hit y'all with the weather report at the end of the episode. So thank y'all for tuning in, and let's get right into my first segment, talking about the sleepy sleepers. These guys are sleepy, and a lot of people are overlooking these guys for sure. Definitely overlooking these guys. And the first guy I want to start with here is Jakobi Meyers, currently ranked as wide receiver number 12 in fantasy football, even though he didn't even play in week 2. So say he played in week 2, he probably would have been a top 10 type guy in fantasy right now. So very exciting things happening for Jakobi Meyers, former Patriot, moving over to the Raiders, and he gets to play against the Chargers this week. I was telling y'all about Davante Adams and how excited I was about Davante Adams' matchup, and I'm just as excited, if not a little bit, maybe even more excited for Jakobi Meyers to pop off this week. I think all the attention probably is going to be on Davante Adams, and that Chargers defense that's already really, really bad is going through stuff with J.C. Jackson too, who's their cornerback number 1. So I think they're going to have a pretty hard time defending the pass at all. Probably going to put the first priority on stopping Davante Adams, and then I imagine Jakobi Meyers is going to eat on Sunday against them. Had a pretty big year last year, pretty solid year fantasy-wise. He went 67 receptions for 804 yards and 6 touchdowns. So, I mean, those are pretty solid wide receiver 2 numbers. The 6 touchdowns definitely adding in. That's an added factor, and he was definitely the wide receiver 1 for the Patriots, but they just wanted to let him go and didn't really want to pay him. So, Raiders absolutely pick a guy like that up. Last year only had 2 10-plus target games in the entire year. I think he had 13 and 13 in those games, so they were heavily targeting him in those 2 games and not heavily targeting him like he was the wide receiver 1 in these other games. Only 2 10-target games in 2023, and the only 2 games that he's played at all, he's already recorded 10-plus targets in those games in 2023. So is his volume up? Is he now a guy that we have to worry about in the fantasy realm, someone that you could actually pick up for probably a decent price in DFS? It seems that way. Seems like he is picking up the slack that Josh Jacobs is leaving on the field. Josh Jacobs running back like 25 right now for some reason. I don't know about y'all, but in one of my fantasy leagues, Josh Jacobs went number 2. So the fact that he is, not doing his job at this point in the season is pretty concerning in my opinion. But more props to Jakobi Meyers. Looks like he's going to be picking up that work, and I love to see it. Week 1, Jakobi Meyers, 29 fantasy points with 9 receptions, 81 yards, and 2 touchdowns. So he's even getting looks in the red zone too with Davante Adams being on the team. He just looks like the baby version of Davante Adams. Obviously, Davante a lot bigger, a lot stronger, probably better at everything football-wise than Jakobi Meyers. But, Davante Adams wears number 17, and then Jakobi Meyers wears number 16. So they look like mini versions. One of my friends was saying that. I thought that was really, really funny about him. But then sat out week 2, got a concussion, got smacked real hard. If you go look up the video, he got freaking murked. It was insane. And came back, got through his concussion protocol, whatever. Week 3 came back, popped off for another 15.5 fantasy points, which from your wide receiver 2, you're just absolutely loving. 7 receptions for 85 yards in that game. Obviously, that was the game that Davante Adams had 20 targets, and they lost. But I like that even in a game where Davante Adams is getting 20 targets, Jakobi Meyers is still getting his love. He finished with 12 targets in that game, I believe. I always talk about this. This is literally something I always talk about. Guys like Justin Jefferson, guys like, can't really say Amon-Ra yet, but just like a number 1 wide receiver that is just going to draw all the attention, which a guy like Davante Adams will naturally do. Then that wide receiver 2 is just freed up for a little bit more room, a little bit less attention from the defense, and more room to get you more fantasy points. So that is wonderful. Like I said, picking up that Josh Jacobs slack. He is running back 25, and guys, who else in this Raiders offense is going to make a play? I really don't know. If it's not Josh Jacobs and it's not Davante Adams, then it's got to be Jakobi Meyers. Right now, Michael Mayer, the rookie tight end. Obviously, we're seeing Sam Laporta, who's playing in a game right now, pop off. He's like tight end 2 or tight end 3. He's like a top 5 tight end for sure. And Michael Mayer, who had better statistical college performance at tight end 57 right now. And then their wide receiver 3, Hunter Renfrow, who we've all heard of and supposed to be a dog, is wide receiver number 115. So not much fantasy value from him. Love Jacoby Myers this week. Think he'll be getting the lesser of the attention between Devontae Adams and him from that Chargers defense. Next guy I want to talk about, pretty solid guy, someone that I've liked for a while. Obviously, I'm from Colorado, like I said, but I think this guy has a lot of talent. He's still pretty young, and that is Courtland Sutton. I think he's a sleeper this week, someone that could have a pretty big game. They're going to be playing against the Bears, who seem to just give it up in every which way. They don't really care how you do it. They just want you to score points on them so they can get a higher draft pick. That seems like the recipe for the 2023 season for the Bears. But if you remember, Courtland Sutton does have a pretty aggressive injury history. I think some ankle issues along with a torn ACL. And it's not like he's been in the best spot as it pertains to his quarterback, working him out and, make sure he's getting fed targets. But I think he's now in the best position that he's ever been in at this point. Seems like Russell Wilson kind of has his head on straight at this point in the season. Looks stronger, faster. I was talking about Russ and think that he looks a lot better than he has in at least last year. And Sean Payton is going to be, a big factor. He's going to want to use the weapons that he has to his disposal, and Courtland Sutton is going to be one of those big weapons in that Broncos offense. Obviously, Broncos need to fix their defense, giving up 70 points. That's not Courtland Sutton's fault. Courtland Sutton can't, catch touchdowns and break up passes. He's only got one job to do, and he's also getting Judy back. Judy kind of takes a lot of the attention away as well from Sutton. Kind of in the prime of his life, 27 years old, like I said. If he's ever going to be good, I would assume that it's going to be this season, in that 2019 season. I believe that was his rookie season. He put up like 1,000 yards and was a Pro Bowler. So he's shown the potential. If he's ever going to get back to that type of play, that high-level Pro Bowl type play, I think it would be this year. So do like Courtland Sutton so far. He's put up a pretty good year, 17 receptions for 189 yards and the 2 touchdowns. Had a touchdown that was pretty meaningless, obviously, in that Dolphins game, the 70-20 game. But love his physicals, pretty fast, strong wide receiver. Think he could have a pretty big week against a very bad Bears team. Last sleeper that I want to speak on to y'all is going to be the guy who's currently ranked as wide receiver number 9 in fantasy football, and a lot of people would not expect this coming into the year. I did invest in this guy. I thought that he would, be a shoe-in for wide receiver number 1 on his squad, and he absolutely has done that so far this season, and that is Adam Thielen. This 33-year-old wide receiver is showing a lot of life left in his career. And I appreciate seeing it. A lot of people thought he was going to fall off, but he even had a really good year last year, being that wide receiver 2 in the Viking squad. But now he's switching over. He's going to become the wide receiver 1, and man, has he made an impact on this team, who literally has no other significant weapons besides him. It seems, I guess Miles Sanders could be considered as the running weapon, but receiving wise, they really don't have anybody besides Adam Thielen. And how about him in a revenge spot going up against the Minnesota Vikings, his former team, for his entire career? I guess they didn't want to pay him the contract that he wanted, so he was completely cool. This is an undrafted guy, chip on his shoulder type guy. I'm just going to go get paid somewhere else, go to the worst team in the league, and he's already balling out. Week 3 went for 14 total targets, so obviously that's a lot. 11 receptions, 145 yards, and the touchdown. Number is going to be a little skewed just because Andy Dalton was the guy throwing him the ball, and Bryce Young will be back in this Week 4 matchup. But still love it. I think he's going to be in absolute revenge mode and on demon time, whatever that means. Well, the kids are saying that. And his eyes are going to be laser focused on doing his job this week. He's literally the only sign of life in this 0-3 Panthers team. I wouldn't be surprised if the Panthers went 0-16, but Thielen finds a way to put up a 1,000-yard season. He's already at 200. He currently doubles any other wide receiver in the Panthers offense for yards. I think he has 200 something. The next guy has only 100. So I love him in Week 4. Love this revenge spot for Adam Thielen, and definitely think he can get it done this week. Guys, when I come back, we're going to be giving you that London game preview, London game breakdown between the Jaguars and the Falcons. So make sure you come back with me so I can share all of those thoughts and opinions with you. Dang, the Packers are nothing. What is going on, boys and girls? Got a quick update for y'all in the Green Bay game. If you're tuned in with me and not watching, Jordan Love currently in the middle of the second quarter with 15 total passing yards. So not looking good. I told y'all last episode when I gave you the breakdown for Thursday Night Football that I just was not impressed in any way by this Packers offense, and it looks like it's coming to fruition right now versus the Lions defense that is really not that good. I think they're a bit overhyped right now. I told y'all I didn't really believe in the Jordan Love hype just yet. Do like some of the things that he's doing, but doesn't look like he's going to get the job done today. Already down 24-3 on the night. So, eek. Very unfortunate for him. But let's get into my second segment here, guys. Second segment here, talking about the London game that's going to be going on 7:30 a.m. Mountain Time for me on Sunday. And I'm pretty sure throughout the next couple weeks or probably throughout the entire season, they're just going to have a London game sparingly throughout the NFL season. So be watching out for that. It's always going to be earlier. Make sure you have your fantasy guys in for that. If you have a guy in this little matchup between the Jaguars and the Falcons, make sure you put him in the night before, because I'm sure nobody's up at that hour after a Saturday night, most definitely. But Jaguars are favorites here. They're going to be the favorites with a 3-point spread, and I really don't know who I like in this matchup. Probably boils down to some quarterback play with Trevor Lawrence being the better of the two quarterbacks. Obviously a guy who's won a national championship in real life, and then Desmond Ritter's over there doing whatever he's doing. Doesn't look like he's getting the job done for his offense. But I love Trevor Lawrence, don't like Devin Ritter. I would much rather see Taylor Heineke, who's the quarterback 2 for the Falcons right now. Would much rather see him be able to get in. But as far as this game, let's just talk fantasy implications. This is the Fantasy Football Podcast. I'm not going to, sit here and beat around the bush. Let's get right into the fantasy implications, starting with Trevor Lawrence. Thor, some people call him. He kind of looks like Thor. He's currently the quarterback 18 in fantasy football right now. A bit of a slow start to the season. Has all the talent in the world, but doesn't seem to be, being able to lock in and just get it done when it matters most. 0 20-plus point fantasy games up to this point in the season. Had a pretty good week 1. Faced the Chiefs week 2 in a very hot day, and a lot of people are throwing that game away because it was, really hot, people cramping up, whatever. And then I'm not sure if this was like a fluke or what in week 3 versus the Texans, but they lost 37-17 versus CJ Stroud, who actually looked amazing. CJ Stroud was dotting everybody up, throwing sidearms down the field. He was everywhere with it, and Trevor Lawrence just couldn't really find an answer in that 37-17 loss. I think the most important factor right now for the Jacksonville Jaguars and Trevor Lawrence's fantasy appearances that he hasn't really been making is the Jaguars O-line not being able to hold up. They are struggling right now to protect this guy. 3 sacks week 1, 4 sacks week 2, and then gave up 5 sacks to the Texans in week 3. And it's not like the Texans are, amazing world-beating pass rushers who are, getting paid millions of dollars. These are just guys. Obviously, Will Anderson's out there, top pick in the draft, but their O-line is just not holding up. The Jaguars, bottom 10 run and pass block PFF grade in the entire league. So definitely bad 3 weeks through the season. Ultimately, though, Trevor Lawrence can't really be worried about that. It's going to be up to him, regardless if the offensive line is going to protect for 3 seconds or 1 second. He's the one that's going to be touching the ball every single snap. And it will be up to him to see if they're going to be able to, make a run this season, which a lot of people were predicting them to do. I think he needs to get the ball out a lot quicker. I think he looks down the field and just looks for too many options too often when he could just be hitting his checkdowns. Uses weapons like, Calvin Ridley, who absolutely popped off week 1, has been super quiet weeks 2 and 3. We'll talk about him a little bit in a second. Obviously, Christian Kirk getting a little bit of love, and then Ingram is in that offense as well. Their wide receiver 3, who is also a big talent, in my opinion, Zay Jones, is going to be hurt this week. Probably won't make an appearance in the game. But I think one of the biggest problems for Trevor Lawrence, one of the biggest problems for him is that he is just so happy all the time. Why is Trev so happy? I know he's like, a big believer in God, and I appreciate that. That's really cool that he, has that faith element tied to his background. But he's always so happy, even after a loss. I want him to get angry. Like, I saw this Tom Brady video where he was just showing how personal he would take every single thing on the football field to like fuel his fire. And I know that was a big Michael Jordan thing too. I feel like even like with me, if someone disrespecting, it's personal. Now it's personal. That's when like the real dog comes out of you. He's always so happy. He needs to get some dog in him and get angry on the field one time. Tell his guys to get going and tell his offensive line to please protect him. But like him as a fantasy quarterback, but only like him at this point. Hasn't really shown enough to be great, which is terrible just because he literally has every single weapon that he could possibly want. So it still has a lot of potential to be great. Don't give up on Trevor just yet. Talking about the running back situation, obviously can't really talk about Trevor Lawrence without Travis Etienne or vice versa. Won a national championship together. So definitely cool. Travis Etienne really coming into his own in this league, doing a lot for his team. He's currently the running back 10 in fantasy football, and he's the Jaguars' workhorse. He's going to get, the 15 to 20 touches that all fantasy managers are looking for, and that's a great sign for him. Week 1, 23 touches, led to 21 fantasy points. Week 2, 14 touches, led to only 6 fantasy points, but that was the game that I was telling you that he had the cramps. He actually sat out for at least a drive and probably even a couple more plays because he was having cramps. And then week 3 came back to his regular self with the 23 touches, 17.8 fantasy points. He also had a touchdown stolen from him, got it all the way to the red zone, and Tank Bigsby ended up running it in when I didn't think that he was going to be the one to do that. Super disappointing because I do have Trav on my fantasy team. Love that I got him. Seems like he's going to be a workhorse for the foreseeable future. So very happy that I have this guy. Don't love him this week, though. Do not love him this week. Going up against a Atlanta rush defense that is top 5 currently. Top 5 rush defense in the entire league. And obviously this O-line has already showed that they can't protect. And they're really bad in the run block, too. Trav has just been making way more plays than his offensive linemen were, missing out on. So he's still been able to break free a couple times. Don't love him this week, though, against this top 5 defense. As far as pass catchers go, Jaguars pass catchers, they've got a bunch of talent out there. Obviously, like I said, Zay Jones going to be injured in this one, so won't make an appearance. But they got Calvin Ridley, who is currently wide receiver number 37, but those are probably just because of those 2 down weeks that he's had. Christian Kirk, wide receiver number 34, so actually ranking ahead of him, but that's just because he had a good week too. And then Evan Ingram is currently tight end 4. Tight end been super thin this year in fantasy football, so Evan Ingram with less than impressive performances still ending up as a top 5 tight end in fantasy. But I want to start off talking about Calvin Ridley. Definitely the guy who I think has the most talent in this Jaguars offense. From a pass catching standpoint, Very, very good. Showed that in week 1 that he still has that electricity in his game, but it's just like a little weird to see these next 2 weeks, and I don't really know what to think about it, truthfully. He either like doesn't know the offense or something like that. He was making mistakes, and the coach was calling him out on the mistakes. Trevor Lawrence ended up going to bat for him in the media, though, saying that he still believes in him and he's still going to be going to him. He does lead the team in target share with a 27.4% target share. Even got 7 targets last week. Only ended up with 3 receptions for 40 yards in that week 3 loss versus the Texans. And, obviously that's just not going to do it. Christian Kirk, wide receiver 2 in Jacksonville, still really good. They paid him a big bag, and everybody was mad about it. I'm sure you guys remember him getting signed to that big contract. 14 targets week 2, and only led to 6 targets in week 3. So it doesn't look like he's like the staple, the guy that they're always looking for. It seems like they're consistently looking for Ridley, and then they'll sparingly make sure Christian Kirk gets his touches too. Ended up with 4 receptions for 54 yards and a touchdown against the Texans, though, so found that end zone for the first time in the NFL season. I'm still pretty low on Christian Kirk at the moment just because I don't know what he's really going to give us. I need to see more from Trev. And then once Ridley actually carves out his spot and shows us how he's going to perform throughout the year, then I think we can have a more just better understanding of how Christian Kirk fits into this offense. Finally, we have Evan Ingram, who's going to be the tight end for his fantasy numbers in weeks 1 through 3. He went 13.7 fantasy points, 11.7 fantasy points, and then 9.9 fantasy points. So somehow that's literally making up a top 5 fantasy tight end. We got a comment here, Dak Field, Stafford. Goodness. Fantasy-wise, until I want to say Justin Fields just because I think he has the potential to do it, but I am going to have to go with Stafford because he has an arm blessed from God, still can make any throw, and he's going to have Cooper Kupp back real soon. In week 5, most likely, still has a bunch of pretty decent players in the run game with Kyren Williams. Looks decent, so he'll be able to set up that play action and unload that godly arm that he has. Let's talk about Atlanta's offense, though, in this London game. We're still talking about the London game. Unfortunately, guys, your quarterback has to touch the ball every single play of, every single football game. It is very unfortunate, and Atlanta does not have a good quarterback. They got Desmond Ridder sitting under the pocket. Looking at his film, looking at his past few game recaps, he just doesn't look comfy back there. O-line not really protecting him either. It has no fantasy value whatsoever. Unless you're in a 32-team league, that is the only time that you can think about even trying to play Desmond Ridder. He has no fantasy value. I'm ready for Taylor Heineke to get in the game ASAP and think he'll be, very good for them. They have weapons that they can use, and it doesn't seem like Ridder is getting the job done. Also, Atlanta has 2 dog running backs. Got Tyler Algier, who I love. I actually ended up drafting, but he has, in the past 2 weeks, not been very good. Then they also have Bijan, who's currently running back number 7 in fantasy football. Algier's running back number 22. Let's start off talking about Algier. Algier, week 1, obviously popped off. Everybody knows this. 15 carries, 75 yards, 2 touchdowns. I was going absolutely crazy having him on my bench, ready to start him in week 2, where he came back 16 carries for 48 yards and no fantasy points, 5 or 6 fantasy points. So that was super, super disappointing to see. He was obviously my starting lineup at that point. Week 3 even came back with a worse performance where he got less touches in the rushing game than Bijan Robinson. 7 carries for 12 yards. Also picked up 2 receptions for 17 yards, but I'm not too happy with Tyler Algier right now. Bijan Robinson has just impressed the coaches, and I don't think there's any reason to go away from what he's doing. He literally seems like a generational talent, in my opinion. So a guy that's going to need to be on the field most of the time. Pretty telling week 4 for him to see if he's even going to have any more fantasy value on this team. This could literally be the last week that he has any notable fantasy value and just becomes a backup running back to Bijan Robinson. Just to kind of give you a snapshot of what's going on in this backfield. In week 3, Bijan recorded 54 snaps just 54 snaps in general, and Tyler Algier only recorded 20 snaps total. So really, really bad. outlook for a guy like Tyler Algier and someone that I think you just have to leave on your bench until further notice. Talking about Bijan Robinson, though, someone who is an absolute must-start. Love his matchup this week against a beaten-up Jaguars team. Just got beat up. 37 points scored on them by, the league-wide consensus worst team in the league, Houston Texans. 37 points. That's absolutely crazy. Like I said, Bijan, 54 snaps in Week 3. Week 2, he even had 59 snaps. The thing we love about Bijan is his pass-catching prowess. He's also like a receiver-type guy. He recorded 19 slot snaps in Week 2. So he'll definitely be chilling in the slot, looking to run routes just like a slot receiver would. 9 slot snaps in Week 3. Say slot snaps 5 times fast. That's absolutely difficult, but really, really good player here. Where he literally reminds me of Saquon. That's his comp, is a Saquon Barkley type guy. Bijan, Saquon, you say it, and it just sounds like the same guy. Very elite athlete, gonna get the 15 to 20 touches per game while he's healthy. If he's healthy, you can just guarantee stamp of approval. Austin approved 15 to 20 snaps per game, currently averaging 17 fantasy points per game. Had a little bit of a down week in Week 3, but I expect him to come and bounce right back in Week 4. And I also think he's probably already their best player, most likely. Let's finally get to these Falcons pass catchers who not too many notable guys to talk about, but I want to start with Drake London. He was the 8th pick in the draft a couple years ago. Still a pretty solid player. He is currently ranked as wide receiver number 61 in fantasy football. They got Kyle Pitts. He's tight end 19, who's supposedly supposed to be a top 5 type tight end type guy. And then they have their receiving leader. This is their receiving leader on the Falcons, Mac Hollins, wide receiver number 73. So they're not producing a lot on the offensive side of the ball from a fantasy perspective. Besides Bijan Robinson, this is an offense I'm going to want to stay completely away from. And if you have Bijan, he seems to be that shining light in a very dim place. So good on you for having him if you do. Guys, they have a really bad quarterback delivering the ball, and that seems to be the reason that they can't get anything going for your fantasy teams. Not too much fantasy value in this offense by any means, and I recommend that you would stay away from anybody besides Bijan. Also told you that somehow Mac Hollins is leading the team in receiving yards. That is just disgusting. But let's talk about Drake London. He's technically Desmond Ritter's favorite target. Down the stretch last year, he was looking for him a lot. Week 2 actually had a pretty decent performance, 6 receptions for 67 yards and the touchdown versus Green Bay. They didn't have Jair Alexander that day, so I would attribute a lot of his success to being that reason. One of the top 5 cornerbacks in the league was sitting out, and he would have saw him a lot. He did end up with 18.7 fantasy points that game, and that was the game that he showed out the most. That was his only real performance. Came back Week 3, 2 receptions for 31 yards, 5.1 fantasy points. Back to earth, back to where I expect him to be in this offense. He is currently Drake London, 8th pick in the draft, 4th on his team in receiving yards, and he has less targets than running back Bijan Robinson. So a guy that I would be staying away from by any means necessary is Drake London. Next guy, we got to talk about him, Kyle Pitts. Everybody spends high draft picks on Kyle Pitts every year, and it doesn't seem to have panned out yet. Week 3, 5 receptions, 41 yards. 8.7 fantasy points, and that was a season high for Kyle Pitts. 8.7 fantasy points, season high. So I want to say that looks like a bit of a better sign. Saw him catch some slant routes, and he was lining up outside. I want to see him moving all over the field. This is a 4-4 tight end that they can't find a way to get involved. He's big, strong, and fast. If you get him in open space, I don't see how he doesn't make plays. So Kyle Pitts is very, very crucial to this Atlanta Falcons offense if they want to win any games. I'll take 9 targets in Week 3, not too bad, definitely a better sign, but it's kind of just based on matchup for him. If he's going up against, a tough pass rush that their O-line can't sustain, and then he has, good linebackers guarding him, I would probably just stay away. If he has bad linebackers and a bad pass rush, that's the only time I'm really going with Kyle Pitts in a DFS type weekly fantasy league, something like that. He has all of the tools in his bag necessary and is an amazing athlete, but they're just not finding a way to get this guy in space. Finally, let's talk about Mac Hollins before we wrap up this segment and go to fantasy talk. But Mac Hollins, receiving yards leader for the Atlanta Falcons, kind of a nobody in fantasy. He's been averaging like 5 or 6 points per game. Had a pretty good week 2. I think he put up like 9 fantasy points with like 3 receptions for 60 yards. And that's how he's the leader in receiving yards for the squad. But last year showed some potential. He was playing with the Raiders. Made some big catches for them and Derek Carr in 2022, but I just don't think that he gets enough targets to even warrant a roster spot at this point. Keep your eyes on Mac Hollins, though, because receiving leader for the Falcons. Guys, make sure you come back with me. When I come back, we're just going to be having like a kind of open-ended discussion, talking fantasy talk, and I welcome y'all to jump in the comments, ask me whatever questions. I'll be checking comments, but make sure you guys come back. The Packers really didn't show up to play today. Packers literally not on shit. Show life is not having it. Friends and family, we are back for another segment of the GSMC Fantasy Football Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Sports Network. Super excited to be here doing this fantasy talk segment. And guys, I just kind of go up, look at these players, and I just want to talk matchups and some stuff. If y'all want to come back for tomorrow's episode, that is the matchups episode, where I'm really just breaking down pretty much every single guy that I like in the certain week that we're in. Obviously week 4 right now, and we're just talking about matchups. So I'll be checking comments. It's halftime right now in the Lions Packers game. So if y'all have any fantasy questions that you're dying to ask a fantasy guru, can I call myself a fantasy guru? I'm more of a fantasy fanatic, just someone who's obsessed. So let's talk about it. Want to start with Senior A.J. Brown going up against the Washington Commanders defense. A.J. Brown had a big week in week 3. Really enjoyed watching him play. Finally was able, after throwing a big temper tantrum in the previous week, Jalen Hurts finally decided that he was going to go with him, and he ended up dropping multiple touchdowns in that week. But he'll be going up against the Commanders defense, Commanders guys, they have a pretty good defense. They actually have a pretty solid defense. I'm kind of surprised about that. one of the better coverage grades in the league, but I don't think that really matters as it pertains to A.J. Brown. I don't think they're going to have a guy that can really shut him down, but could definitely see this being either I was talking about this earlier too. Always talking about the callbacks. Devontae Smith and A.J. Brown, it's really either one or the other. Very often it's not like both of them, so you have to watch out for that. Watch out for who their matchup is, but let's just check what PFF currently says that his matchup is looking like, and I have that here. Going to the fantasy, and I want to hear your guys' thoughts and opinions on who you think is going to go off this week. If you guys have any plays, I'm willing to listen to just about anything. For week 4, I'm always looking for sleeper opinions, stuff like that. But A.J. Brown currently against all receivers. A.J. Brown. He's only getting a good matchup against all Washington Commanders defensive backs. Let's see if we can find who will actually be going up against. Most likely, looks like he's going to be going up against Forbes. Also, Kendall Fuller, he's going to be on the field with as well. I think he has a big advantage against those guys, just size and speed-wise. But we just don't know who Jalen Hurts is going to be going with on like a week-to-week basis. Do like A.J. Brown just because of his physicals and think that he should probably be able to box out a lot of those DBs that are going to be going up against him. If y'all know me, this is the Deebo Samuel channel. This is the Deebo Samuel channel right now. Constantly talking about Deebo and just like how good he's doing. He's going to be going up against the Arizona Cardinals, who low-key shut down CD. CD didn't really have a big day against the Cardinals. Let's pull up CD's stats against them because I guess they're kind of comparable, but I do think that Deebo is more of like a utility type weapon, someone that you can put all over the field. CD doesn't really like take running back snaps or running back carries, so for that reason I think I do like Deebo Samuel even more than I like CD Lamb. But Deebo Samuel on 7 targets only caught 4 balls for 53 yards in that game. Weirdly enough, CD did carry the ball twice in that game too. But I think Deebo Samuel probably has a pretty good matchup as it pertains to this game against the Cardinals. He's going to be seeing, no good type DB, type corner type guys. Budda Baker is going to be back there, but this is also a divisional opponent that they see a lot, and I kind of want to see his history against the Arizona Cardinals, so let's just see what that's looking like. Deebo Samuel versus the Cardinals. He has played 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 games against the Cardinals. Hasn't really had too many big games. He actually has he has a couple rushing touchdowns. Just a couple rushing touchdowns. No receiving touchdowns in any game versus the Cardinals so far in his career. So keep that in mind. But in his 3 most recent games, we have to remember that Deebo was hurt a lot of last year too. Most recent game was on January 8th, earlier this year. 2 catches for 20 yards, and that's it. And then only 1 rush for 4 yards. I'm sure that's injury-based. Can't really expect that from a guy like Deebo Samuel all the time. But in these 4 other games where I would have to assume that he was not injured, he's grabbing at least 9 or 10 targets every single game. Goes 9, 9, 9, 10. Just looking at it, only one game over 100 yards. He went for 134 yards in 2019 versus them. Thought there was going to be a little bit more meat on that bone to see if we could find like a nice, easy matchup. But he has done them dirty one time with the 134-yard performance. Just like his look. I think Arizona, obviously they're hungry for another win, and somehow they just beat Dallas. And that's crazy that you have to play Dallas and then you have to go back and play the 49ers, which I also think the Giants had to do this season already. And they got smacked twice I don't think the Cardinals are going to put up much of a fight against the 49ers. The 49ers just look a little bit too dominant so far this year. Want to look at a running back real quick and see if there's any potential at all for Josh Jacobs to finally, burst and be the Josh Jacobs that we saw last year. Chargers currently on PFF ranked the 4th worst rush defense in the entire league, so that's definitely a good sign. But let's check how the Raiders O-line is going to face up against a team like that. Raiders O-line on here, they're actually ranked 13th in O-line. Take this. My dog in the background just doing the most. I'm sure you guys want to see my dog, so I'll show him to you during the weather report, which is going to be next. So make sure you guys come back for the weather report so I can show you. Let's see if there's any comments I need to tend to. Oh, we're all good. Most definitely. I think Josh Jacobs has a chance to finally have one good game. I want to hear your guys' thoughts about it, though. He's currently projected for 15.7 fantasy points in this game. ESPN projecting him to go for 15 carries for 65 yards and then also add a little bit in the passing game, too. I don't know. Josh Jacobs just doesn't look like he has that burst at the moment. I don't know if he was just eating too many Twinkies in the offseason or what that is, but he hasn't broken free one time. His game log right now, very unimpressive. Week 1, 19 carries for 48 yards. Also added in the 2 receptions for 23 yards. Came out to 9 fantasy points. So, pretty bad if this guy's your running back 1. Played against Buffalo, 9 carries for -2 yards is what he ended the game with on the ground, but saved the game with the 5 receptions for 51 yards, ended up with 10 fantasy points that game. Then against Pitt, he picked it up a little bit, 17 carries, 62 yards. That was a season high for him. Also added in 3 receptions for 18 yards. So I guess we kind of like his check down ability, the fact that he can just go up 5 yards downfield, catch the ball, and then just keep running. But I don't know. Against the Chargers defense, who has literally shown us nothing, if he's ever going to break out this season, I would assume it would be against a team like the Chargers. So keep your eyes on Josh Jacobs. Think you can probably get him at a pretty cheap price for DFS or weekly fantasy if you are looking for like a weekly fantasy that just goes Sunday through Monday. I want to talk about one more guy at least, and I'll talk about a guy who I don't think is going to have a good week. Been talking about him for the last little bit on the show here, and that is Offensive Rookie of the Year last year, Garrett Wilson. My friend was actually grew up, and he was like best friends with Garrett Wilson, so that's super, super weird, very small world. And, for not that reason, but for many reasons, because I thought he was a great player, and I kind of had the inside track on him. Went with him as my second-round pick in one of my fantasy leagues, thinking that he would have Aaron Rodgers throwing him the ball. He'd be in a great situation. Now he's no longer in a good situation, but Zach Wilson still, is looking at him as his top target. 9 targets week 3, 8 targets week 2 against Dallas, and then the 5 targets in week 1, which is a bit of a fluke because I'm sure Zach Wilson wasn't even looking to play that game. He's going up against Kansas City this week, and a pretty tough defense, which I think that Garrett Wilson is probably a better athlete than the guys on the other side of the ball. Like cornerback-wise, he's probably going to be going up against Trent McDuffie, most likely, who's like their best corner. He's a second-year guy. Really good corner out of Washington, I believe. Ranks very well on PFF too, but this is just not a defense that I see Zach Wilson being able to read. I think they're going to be throwing like some stunts and stuff at him, obviously heating him up, sending pressure. So for that reason, I'm going to be out on Garrett Wilson this week. Still obviously have to start him, but somebody I would maybe looking to trade in the very near future. Guys, that is our fantasy talk segment. Just a nice little talk about guys that I like and stuff like that. When I come back, we're going to be talking weather report, so nobody is in the dark about the weather that is going to be happening on Sunday and whether you're going to bet on the game or you got your fantasy guys. I don't want you guys to miss out or not know what's going to happen in the weather report, so I'm going to give that to y'all when we come back. What is up, guys? We are here to finish out the episode very, very strong as always. Always looking to be our best on this podcast, and we're talking weather report. Weather report. I think we're having a malfunction here. Let's just change this right in front of your guys' eyes. Oh no. Weather report. Weather report. And on Sunday, guys, it's looking like a very, very nice and toasty afternoon in pretty much all places in the United States. And even in that London game, we're going to have some good weather. So let's just get right into it. I'm going to pull up the graphic here so you guys can see. And that is going to be down here. This is still very new to me, ladies and gentlemen. But we are here with the weather report. Let's do it. Sunday weather report. Guys, matchup episode tomorrow. Make sure you tune in for the matchup episode. It's definitely my best episode of the week, and the one that if you're not going to watch anything, you should watch on Friday, because I'm going to give you all of the best matchups, all of the best fantasy implications that are going to be happening Sunday, Monday. So make sure you guys are tuned in for that matchup episode, guys. Start with the Jags-Falcons game. Obviously going to be in London in Wembley Stadium. You know, Wembley just sounds like a very London type name, Wembley. But in London will be 71 degrees. Not too bad. Pretty good football weather, 11 mile per hour winds. I say like once it's like 10 mile per hour and more, that's when like the ball can start moving because of, kicks or throws, whatever. If you have the wind at your back, it's just going to be beautiful for you. You can obviously factor that in as a quarterback to your throws, and then as a kicker, you're just going to know that the weather's going to be behind you, the wind's going to be behind you, and you don't have to put as much juice on the kick or what have you, type stuff like that. Next game, we got Miami versus the Buffalo Bills in Highmark Stadium in Buffalo, New York. And we got a hot one in New York. Very surprising. 77 degrees and sunny, so expect good football weather. Expect Josh Allen to be out there throwing absolute darts and cannons 90 yards down the field. No weather looking to hurt his game on Sunday. Next, we got the Broncos versus the Bears, going to be in Soldier Field. Obviously outside, this is not a dome stadium, but it's going to be 82 and sunny in Chicago, Illinois. Only 8 mile per hour winds. Obviously, this is the windy city, so sometimes we expect a little bit more wind out there, but looks like it's going to be pretty calm. Definitely good football weather for this Sunday in Chicago. Then we got the Ravens versus the Browns. This is going to be in First Energy Stadium in Cleveland. And we got 75 degrees and mostly sunny. 75 degrees, mostly sunny, 10 mile per hour wind. So based on where the wind's going. And the beautiful thing is that teams always switch which side they're going. So if one team had a bit of a wind advantage in the first half, then the other team will be getting that wind advantage in the second half. So very, very good. Next, we got the Bengals versus the Titans. 92 degrees and a beautiful day. Probably a bit hot for my liking. Maybe some cramps like the Travis Etienne situation that happened a little bit ago. But 92 and sunny, probably a good day for DeAndre Hopkins or Jamar Chase, Derrick Henry to run all over the field. Some of those, top stars in the NFL that we know of. Then we got Rams-Colts going to be happening in Lucas Oil Stadium. This is a stadium that can be retractable or domed in, but why would you when it's 82 degrees and sunny out? Don't think they'll need the dome for Sunday's game. 82 and sunny look like more beautiful football weather for Anthony Richardson to maybe throw a couple bombs. Probably Matt Stafford to throw a couple bombs too. That dude, if you're listening, absolute golden arm. Think that Matthew Stafford, even in his old age, still a very, very good football player. Then we got Bucs Saints. Bucs Saints is going to be happening in the Superdome, guys. So no weather implications needed. When you're playing in the dome, it's all good. No weather effects. Whatever's going to be happening in the dome. Then we got Commanders versus Eagles at Lincoln Financial Field. 78 degrees and sunny in that game. So more beautiful football weather for the Commanders to get stomped on by Jalen Hurts, and they're going to do the tush push and get into the end zone probably like 3-4 times. Beautiful weather for that. Then Vikings-Panthers, going to be happening in Bank of America Stadium in North Carolina. We got 80 degrees and sunny for that game, so loving that. Bryce Young's going to be back for that game. Not going to be starting Red Rifle Andy Dalton, Bank of America Stadium in North Carolina. I think the Vikings are definitely going to come out with a win there, no question. Then we got Raiders-Chargers in SoFi Stadium. This is going to be in Los Angeles. I totally forgot that the Chargers were not in San Diego and they were actually in LA, and they shared the stadium with the Los Angeles Rams. My bad, but made sure to look it up before I just told y'all. But this is going to be in SoFi Stadium, Los Angeles. 69 degrees, partly sunny, only 3-mile-per-hour winds, nothing too bad. Then Patriots Cowboys, AT&T Stadium, 94 and sunny, going to be sweet, beautiful football weather. They do have a retractable dome. I don't know if they would ever use that if it gets too hot, but I'd have to imagine they're just going to let it ride with the hot weather and just appreciate that God bless them with a hot day and keep that roof open. So beautiful football weather over there. Literally haven't seen one bad game where we have rain or snow or anything. So I'm very happy about that. Cardinals 49ers going to be happening in Levi Stadium, obviously in San Francisco. Praise God that it's not in Arizona, because I'm pretty sure it's going to be 1,000,000 degrees there any day that you look. It's been hot in Colorado. That means it's been 10 times hotter in Arizona. But we got a 70 degrees and partly sunny day in San Francisco. We're going to have 14-mile-per-hour winds, so that's actually the highest wind that we've seen in any of these games. Maybe something of note for the passing game. Maybe look at these guys to be running the ball a bit more. Finally, we have the Chiefs-Jets at MetLife Stadium. Taylor Swift's going to be there. Travis Kelce's going to be there. I'm sure everybody's going to be watching. And we got beautiful football weather in that game too, 60 degrees and clear skies on Sunday Night Football to cap us off on a beautiful Sunday. I can't wait for Sunday, y'all. I'm going to be posted up on my couch watching Red Zone Channel all day, and I hope you guys are doing a similar thing as well. Make sure you guys pop back for my episode tomorrow. We're going to be talking matchups, and I'm going to get you guys right for Sunday and Monday, making sure you guys have all the people that you need to have in your lineups. Check out the Patreon, like and subscribe. I appreciate y'all for watching. Hope you guys have a great rest of your day.